Hi, Kareem. How are you?
I'm doing very well, doctor. It's nice to see you again. And let's get this straight now. Shall I call you Kizzy or Dr. Corbett? You know, how do we do that?
You know what? You can call me anything you want. Kizzmekia, Kizzy, Dr. Corbett. You know, generally speaking, scientists don't actually use doctor. We try to be as lay as possible and relaxed as possible at work. And so let's just go with Kizzy today.
That'll work for me.
You know, Kareem, one of the things that really strikes me about you is that you have been doing this for nearly 6 decades, really in the forefront, so to speak, of being a voice to people around whatever issue, whether it be social justice or in this case, vaccines. And I guess the first question is, what about this COVID-19 vaccine made it so important to you that you use your voice in this way?
Well, from the beginning, I saw that the virus was a major danger to communities of color. And being from the Black community, I wanted to make sure that we were made aware of the fact that the vaccine can go a long way to eliminating the threat that it poses in communities of color. So, you know, that's why I tried to get on board as soon as I could and do a PSA, you know, advocating that the vaccines were safe and effective. And I think it's a responsibility that I have. It's part of the way that I give back.
You know, I completely agree. You know, one of the things that I found as I've been giving back, so to speak, throughout this time and talking to people about the vaccine, however we have to get this message out, we certainly have to, because we just don't have any time to waste. We are racing against a virus that has circulated around the globe for a year, picked up variations, albeit slightly, and it is really time for us to take a stand and get vaccinated and really put this pandemic to rest.
COVID-19 has changed how we spend weekends with the girls. Now it's time to take the first step that lets us get back to brunching instead of late-night munching. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts. As COVID-19 vaccines become available, you may have questions.
Should I get it? Is it safe? Should I wait?
It's okay to have questions. Now get the facts at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
There is so much controversy around the vaccines right now, which for me is actually amazing considering how long we've been in this pandemic. And, you know, so a lot of the controversy comes firstly because people are very concerned about the rapid pace of which these vaccines were developed. You know, from where I sit as the scientific lead of the coronavirus vaccine team at the National Institutes of Health and the Vaccine Research Center, we've been working on coronavirus vaccine development for the last 6 years. And actually, that center was working on it before I even got there 6 years ago. And what you're seeing with this vaccine development over the last year or so is really the fruits of that labor. You have so much knowledge going into the vaccine development process. And then the second piece is that you really work in a very concerted effort across institutions to make sure that each of the checkpoints and the clinical trial stages is safe and that it's very highly vetted. So while you've seen vaccines take 10 years, for example, to be developed before, none of the steps in the last year are any different than that, actually. It's just that they're compressed because of the dire need of getting the vaccine out quickly.
Well, you know, a lot of the controversy historically had to do with the fact that Black Americans as a group were not given treatment, and it was withheld from Black Americans. In this situation, it's the exact reverse. We're trying to get people of color and Black Americans to take the treatment, and they're refusing many times because of abuses in the past. So, how do we get over that hurdle, as far as communicating the safety and efficacy of these vaccines?
The first point is that you have to really acknowledge the past with some level of certainty and also empathy. I think that, what we've tried to do is say, look, we understand what has happened in the past. Oftentimes, the Tuskegee experiment sticks out most boldly amongst African Americans in regards to medical mistrust. But the truth of the matter is, even today, there's probably someone Black in this country who went to the doctor and maybe was mistreated. It is a consistent thing in the African American community. And one of the things is that we just have to acknowledge that and confront it head on, and also start to really take the onus of proving some trustworthiness. The first of which is by inclusion of African Americans and being very deliberate about including African Americans in the clinical trials, whether that meant slowing down the development of the vaccine or not, so that at the end of it, not only could we say was the vaccine safe and effective, but it was also safe and effective in African American people. The second thing that is extremely important is beyond the clinical trials, as the vaccine is rolling out, to try to have equitable distribution. And then there are multiple other different things. And then the one thing that really sticks out around Tuskegee is that many African Americans feel that they don't want to be a guinea pig. There are over 100 million people to date in the United States that have been vaccinated with the vaccines that are in emergency use. And a large proportion of them, frankly, are not African Americans. And so this is not an instance where we are testing something in African Americans. What we're doing is we're trying to say, for American people in all, there are vaccines that are safe and effective, and we want everyone to have access to them and to take heed to them so that we can really start to recover from this pandemic.
It seems that when the healthcare professionals are people of color, the patients have a lot more confidence in what's being done.
That's been my experience with myself. And I'm a Ph.D. scientist who, has a Rolodex of physicians in my phone. And I actually prefer African-American physicians and dentists and et cetera, because there is a level of comfort there. There is a level of understanding that I think that we have with one another. And initially, I was a little taken aback because the visibility was a lot, especially being that I still had to respond to the pandemic by way of the vaccine development. But as I really, accept what is that purpose, I understand that my being in front of people really does help to soothe their fears and to answer their concerns. I can imagine that NBA players or young basketball players might be particularly touched by your message. And so, do you have a particular message? I know there is some very stark and vocal vaccine hesitancy among NBA players. So do you have a particular message for them at all?
The only message I tell people is the vaccine is a lot safer than the disease. So if you want to take your chances with the vaccine, I think you're a wise person. If you want to take your chances with the disease, I think you're unnecessarily taking a risk. We should be risk averse in this situation. The whole idea of a public relations campaign with regard to how this is done, has that proven effective?
I find what is the most effective is what we're doing right now, having very frank conversations, really answering the questions that people have in the back of their minds that sometimes they're even afraid to ask out of, for whatever reason, whether they feel that it may be, a not necessary question, or they feel like they might be able to find the answer elsewhere. And it really starts with a conversation and a continuous conversation, especially I think what my role is that there have been so many people that have been left outside of this process for so long that haven't had the science really spoken to them in lay terms, or anyone has even necessarily cared to, for that matter. And I think that those are the people who are oftentimes most hesitant. And those are the people who need these kinds of forums, whether it be PSAs or webinars or et cetera.
What have you seen in your experience to be the best outreach, the most effective outreach programs, that you've encountered?
I actually find that faith centers do probably some of the best job of outreach, because generally people of faith, this is the one place that no matter what is going on in the world, no matter what is going on in your life, that you can come and you can trust, and you trust your pastor, and you trust, the missionary committee and the usher board, and you trust your other church people. So once you get the word around in faith centers, that generally helps a lot.
2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind.
COVID-19 has hit our community hard, but we must not fear. God is with us.
God works through us and provides a way for us through God's words, through medical treatments, and doctors. But you may still have questions, and that's okay.
Questions like, is it safe? What if I have a pre-existing condition? Where can I get it?
It's good to have questions, because questions lead to answers, and answers will help us find our way.
People of color were part of the testing of the vaccine, people of all backgrounds. People who had pre-existing conditions. I like that. I thought that made me more confident. So get the facts. Visit getvaccineanswers.org
so that you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
And then we'll be able to do what we've been missing so much, have live worship experiences.
Serving others.
And connecting with one another in person as soon as we can.
Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org.
I often find, too, that as far as the older generations are concerned, is really having just one person in the family who really understands the vaccine development process, understands that the vaccine is safe and effective, who can really speak to that to their family in a very familiar way, often helps as well.
The Ad Council and the COVID Collaborative, they've got a great website. It's called getvaccineanswers.org. And you can go there and find out any kind of information that you want to know about the vaccines and their efficacy and all of that. It's reliable information, and I recommend it highly.
Our job in designing the vaccines and getting the vaccine to phase 1 clinical trial was part of the easiest part, but getting it into arms is where the difficulty in lies, I think.
Kizzy, people have a lot of questions. So, let's go to a couple of them, and we'll let you answer them and set people's minds straight on various issues.
This pregnancy and fertility question is one that comes up quite a lot. So the first thing that I want to remind people is that their OBGYNs can be a tremendous resource around all things when they are pregnant. And the second thing is that getting a vaccine, whether you're pregnant or not, is always your choice. So again, you want to make sure that that choice is informed. This vaccine has been shown across, with data rolling out with people who are pregnant and getting the vaccine, that the vaccine is showing to be safe in those people. And as well, there's more and more data that's coming out that's showing that the antibodies or the immune responses that pregnant women are getting from the vaccine, they're passing those on to their babies. So you really are having a two-for, so to speak. When you get vaccinated as a pregnant woman, you're allowed to protect yourself and you're allowed to protect your unborn child. The current recommendation for people who have had COVID-19 before is to still get vaccinated. And there's actually tons of science behind that, believe it or not. It's just not some blanket recommendation. There's really no way to guarantee that you have high-level antibody responses following natural infection. Sure, you can take an antibody test, and generally those are sold and they say yes or no. But to what level they are, certainly not most likely to the level of which you would get from a vaccination. And that's been shown across multiple vaccine platforms in the clinical trials, where people who got vaccinated have far more high level or robust antibody responses than people who got naturally infected. This is a model of a coronavirus. So what you generally would receive if you got a flu vaccine would be the entire flu virus, except it's been weakened so that it doesn't cause you to get sick. I know that people say, oh, I got the flu shot and then I got the flu. Actually, no. What is happening is that just like with the COVID-19 vaccine, you might have some reaction to the flu shot, but you're not getting sick. And so those types of things that you feel like you might get from a flu shot, like, decreased lung capacity and things that might affect your athletic ability, are simply not things that you should necessarily worry about specifically. You should, however, be reminded that there are specific side effects that come from being vaccinated in general. And that's just your body's way of waking up to the immune response. So, you might be tired for a day. So yeah, you might not want to get vaccinated on the day before you have a really big game. You might have a fever or you might have chills, but those things, while uncomfortable, they will pass. And it certainly is not an indication that the vaccine is unsafe or by any means ineffective. We're not giving you a whole virus at all. You're not getting all of the insides of the virus. You're literally getting this little prong on the surface of the virus that's called a spike protein. That's all that your body is seeing from the COVID-19 virus. And because of that, there's absolutely no way that you can catch COVID-19 from getting the vaccine.
Knowledge is power in all of this. And the more confident people have in the information that they receive, that they know it's on the mark and, there's no BS about it, that goes a long way to eliminating all the mistrust.
I completely agree. And you know what, Kareem? One thing is that knowledge is power, but in this so-called data age where everyone has any type of knowledge at their fingertips, it's really important to remind people where to be informed. So, Kareem, I heard that you actually got both of your vaccines doses. So now you're fully vaccinated. So yeah. I'm always curious how people decided to make that choice to get vaccinated or not.
Well, I have my two older sons are in the medical professions. One is a counselor and a hospital administrator, and the other one is a surgeon. And both of them told me, you need to get the vaccination as soon as you can, because the vaccination is nowhere near as bad as catching the disease. And I took that to heart. I thought it was a breeze until the day after, and my arm hurt so bad. But that was the only negative part of it for me. My arm was sore for about 2 days. But
that is something that people should be aware of, are the side effects, which I don't even call side effects. I just call them effects, because all the things that are happening to you in that first 24 hours after you get vaccinated, whether it be a soreness or tenderness in the arm, swelling in the arm, fatigue or headache, or even slight chills, those things are appropriate for you and for you to build up your immune response. It's really your immune response just waking up and starting to elicit very specific immunity against what will be the virus later. Kareem, how did you feel after you got your shots?
Geez, after I got my shot, I felt that I was safer. saw some of the information that said that once you get the vaccine, you probably will not have to go to the hospital or have it become a life-threatening event should you encounter the virus, and that makes you feel a lot safer. That you won't be one of those people that unfortunately succumb to this.
Thank you, Kareem, for having this conversation with me. And thank you across the board for every single thing that you've done throughout your lifetime to be a voice of the people and to really shine some light in dark times oftentimes. And it's a pleasure to be sitting with you virtually in this moment.
Well, I'm very happy to join you in this, and I hope we get some positive results from our efforts today. Dr. Corbett, I just want to thank you for your efforts in developing this vaccine. You've made the world a lot safer, and we owe you for that.
Thank you. All right, talk to you later.
All right, be well.
COVID-19 has changed how we show up and show out with our family. Now it's time to take the first step that lets us get back to talking smack with a side of mac and cheese.
Before we can safely come together, we need the facts.
As COVID-19 vaccines become available, you may have questions.
Should I get it?
Is it safe?
Should I wait?
It's smart to question. Now, get the facts at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.